Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of statewide news service, jbiztechphilly.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I'm having a lot of fun doing all of that, and someone else is having a lot of fun doing what she's doing is Erin Crotty, who's the executive director of Audubon, New York. So welcome to the Jewish View. It's great to have you here.
Thanks. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you're a longtime environmentalist. So what is Audubon, New York all about? I mean, I know you started in '96, and this organization started as recently as '96, so you're just coming up on your 20th year.
Right. So we're a state program of the National Audubon Society, which has been in existence since the early 1900s, founded by a wonderful conservationist, Theodore Roosevelt, and named after John James Audubon. And we're the state program of the National Audubon Society, and our mission is to protect birds and their habitats. We have 27 local Audubon chapters throughout New York State. We have 50,000 members. We have 7 sanctuaries and Audubon centers for folks to go visit. And our reach is literally thousands of people in New York and millions across the United States.
Why did it take so long to get an established organization, or was there some predecessor?
Well, the National Audubon Society has always been in New York. They're headquartered in New York City, but they went through a strategic visioning and decided to invest in state offices around the country.
Oh, okay. So that was a recent. That was what in the early '90s, mid '90s.
Right.
That's what happened.
You know, you say that protection. What would be the danger that that you're protecting them from? I mean, no one's shooting birds. I mean,
yeah. Well, there are lots of dangers and threats to birds. Everything from climate change to loss of habitat, loss of water quality, pesticide use.
That's what I was going to ask, because it's a big thing. The bees nowadays, and one of the biggest, I mean, you know more than me, but you read about it because there's so much pesticides. That's they're thinking
colony collapse syndrome.
So
is that hurting the birds also, you think? I mean, you said pesticides. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So we try to talk to folks and educate people about limited use of pesticides and herbicides in order to improve the habitat for birds and other wildlife, including bees. Birds are pollinators too. I mean, bees are the chief pollinator, but the ruby-throated hummingbird is actually one of the biggest pollinators. It's part of its habitat and range is right here in upstate New York, so we're really lucky.
Well, I have to tell you, your website is really phenomenal, because if you, like you just said, this ruby-throated hummingbird. I mean, if you don't know what that looks like, you can go on the website and you could see a wonderful picture of it. So, it's just brings it, makes more of a connection.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a good use of a website.
Yeah, we think that the birds are good ambassadors. They sort of speak for themselves. They're very compelling, gregarious. And one of the things about birding, or people's interest in birds and the protection of birds, is they're so accessible. It doesn't take any special equipment. I'm sure you both saw birds today. My first bird was the American bluebird right in our yard, which is the state bird.
I mean, my grammar school education, the birds fly south for the winter, but you see birds all in the winter here.
I know.
I was like, why did they go to Miami Beach over here?
Well,
what
isn't
kind
it
of birds
delightful?
are they?
Some birds are migrating north, and some birds are migrating south, and so and some birds stay around year round. So we're really lucky in upstate New York. So in the winter time, we'll get white-throated sparrows in our yard, and they actually summer and breed in Canada and the higher elevation forests in New York State. In the summertime, we're just so lucky on coastal Long Island, we get shorebirds. Up here in upstate New York, we get the forest birds. So Baltimore orioles and wood thrushes and the bluebirds. I mean, these are all the forest birds that Audubon and its partners are trying to protect and improve the habitat.
It's interesting, because if you go to the Five Rivers Wildlife in Delmar, you'll see a lot of different variety of birds, and also Thacher Park, not so much, but I think if you look closely, you probably do see a lot in Thacher Park.
Yep.
But if I look at either a bluebird or a cardinal, and then the gray one. It's a gray bird, Otherwise, I know what a cardinal looks like. I know because of the baseball team, and they have the cardinal.
Right.
Otherwise,
But, you know-
I might not know, and then you have the bluebird, which is common, and maybe if I saw an eagle, I might know an eagle.
That's what I was
you know,
going to
if I
even
see
ask
a
about
hawk,
an eagle.
I might know
I mean-
a hawk, but, you know, otherwise it's just not a very...
I mean, an eagle usually you think of as in Colorado, and I know Mark's right. There are eagles here. First time I heard about it, well, eagles around New York State. You know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
always think of
Absolutely.
again out in the West. That's
Right.
where the eagles are flying around.
Well, the success story in New York is really remarkable. There was what is called the hacking program. Bald eagles were taken into New York from Wisconsin, and they were actually out at the Montezuma Wildlife Refuge in Audubon. We have an Audubon center there, and we were very successful at the breeding and through the efforts of many, many people, including DEC and others, you know, Fish and Wildlife Service, Audubon, Ducks Unlimited. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It really is a success story because we improve their habitat. The Hudson River is cleaner. The ecosystem is cleaner. They rely on the fish. You know, when the fish have decreased levels of PCBs and pesticides and other contaminants, it's great. It's better for the birds. You know, we are all very interconnected when it comes to bird life and when it comes to our own health.
What was the peregrine falcon? Right, that was rejuvenated in New York State, right? They had a program in the 80s to...
I think so. I think you may be right, Mark. I'm not quite familiar with the peregrine falcon hacking program, but...
and now you have many, they're not an endangered species anymore. So
correct, yes.
That's wonderful.
The
yeah.
hawks are amazing. I mean, the red-tailed hawks you can see all over upstate New York.
Are they a good bird? I mean, you think
Of
of a
course.
hawk again, it's
All
just
birds
like
are good.
I'm just saying, you get
Well,
scared. You think, oh, it's a hawk in the
Because
flying
of
around, you know.
Doves and hawks in war, you know.
Yeah, oh, right,
Yes,
that's
I mean,
true.
I don't know.
That's
you get
true.
scared of something, you know. You think
Yeah.
that it's a dangerous bird or something like
No,
that.
no. You know, they're very good raptors in terms of their hunting behavior, and it's just a testament to how improved the habitat is. You
Right.
know, so how great and improved the environment is here for them to be able to survive in the numbers that they do.
And what's your biggest challenge now?
Well, I mean, I think climate change is a big challenge, right? So it may be the biggest challenge of our generation. And Audubon has a recent report last year where scientists are predicting that climate change may negatively impact half of the bird species in North America if the modeling holds true.
Why? Because it get warmer? I don't understand. I mean,
Yeah.
if it gets warmer, it's good for the birds. Better they.
No,
Why, it
not
doesn't work that way?
necessarily. No.
Yeah, I like it
North.
warmer. I'm hoping for global
So,
warming.
well, think of it
Warmer
this way,
for me, I'd like
Rabbi.
it.
If you're a piping plover and you rely on Long Island Sound, which is globally significant for shorebirds, and the climate changes and the habitat starts to disappear, theoretically, you could fly further north, right? Of course, you could fly, but you're not going to find the same kind of habitat as a result. And so there are all sorts of different examples of the kinds of birds that would be in peril, could be in peril in a warmer climate. And so at Audubon, what we're trying to do and what we focus on is, okay, so let's take care of the places that the birds need to thrive and survive now. And let's figure out in a warmer climate, what are those strongholds? That's what we call them. What are the habitats that they're going to need in an even warmer climate? And let's create some strategies for that. And then the third piece is we have to do everything possible to decrease the greenhouse gas emissions and transition to a more renewable energy future. So that's one of our biggest challenges. I mean, not only Audubon, but as a society. Sure. And we're so lucky in New York State because we live in a very progressive state on a lot of fronts, and the environment is another one. I often say that protecting the environment is in the DNA of every New Yorker, you know, a real desire to connect to nature and protect the environment for us and future generations. It's certainly in our Constitution, which is fantastic. And so, you know, I think that we really, when it comes to climate change, that is one of our biggest challenges. Clean water is another. Providing incentives for private property owners to conduct habitat improvement projects on their
Well,
property
I
is really
presume
important.
Clean air is also. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, because
sure.
they're flying up there. So.
Yep.
And Mark, I wanted to say, because we're on the Jewish view, so I have to give the Jewish view
Please.
of the environment. And again, I put in perspective, it's not like these are new things, as you're saying. Teddy Roosevelt's even 100 years ago. I'm talking about Torah, which was given 3,300 years ago, and this idea of just shooting, game. That's what I was mentioned at the beginning, shooting birds just for fun, or shooting animals, which isn't your society, but just all kind of living things, and being careful with the earth, not to waste things, just to take things and just destroy them. So that was always in the Judaic model. It was always part of Judaism, and that's why I think Jewish people are in the forefront of the environmental cause, because that was just, you don't waste things, you don't destroy. You're living in your home. You don't put garbage in your living room. Why should you put garbage in your water stream or your air? So just saying that, I think the Jewish people are very sensitive to these things also. But once you say New York State, are we, I don't know any other state, what they're doing there, but are other states lagging behind us in this kind of idea? Do compare and contrast other states?
Yeah, New York has always been a leader on environmental issues when it comes to open space protection, clean water projects, drinking water projects, habitat improvement, climate change. We've been at the forefront of the battle in order to improve our environment and protect our environment. And certainly the state laws that have been passed here, right in Albany, have served as a foundation and a framework for national laws, including the federal Superfund law and the Federal Clean Air Act. And so we have a lot to be proud of as New Yorkers, and we have just such a wonderful natural heritage to protect, not only for us, as I said, but for future generations as well. And I just love your example, because we are we have a sense of responsibility for our generation, but for future generations as well, that they can have an earth that is as well protected and hopefully better protected than the one that we left them.
What's the Atlantic Flyway?
So the Atlantic Flyway, I was going to say, so the thing about birds, and Rabbi started to talk about this, is they move, right? And so it's really challenging from a protection standpoint. When I worked for DEC, it's a lot like...
You didn't just work for DEC, you were the head of DEC.
I was the head of DEC. So, which was wonderful and really an honor and a privilege.
Sorry,
I know.
It just struck me.
It's a team effort, though.
When you were the commissioner of DEC.
I used to talk about this in terms of air quality too, because we could do everything right in New York State in terms of cleaning up the air quality. But if the states in the upwind sources, so the Ohio River Valley, if those states weren't also enacting tough protections, it would have a negative impact on New York. And so birds are a lot like that. So for the migratory species, they're coming to New York State and other states along the Atlantic Flyway, so the eastern seaboard of America and South America and Central America, and the Canadian provinces.
Everyone thinks of South America, Central America as being part of the West Coast.
Oh, really? Yeah, no. They're part of, so these are like the super highways that the birds follow. And New York State happens to be in the Atlantic Flyway. Right. There's also the Mississippi Flyway, the Central Flyway, and the Pacific Flyway. And it really is sort of this framework for us to talk about the migratory paths of the birds.
But Central and South America is part of the Atlantic Flyway?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, there are sections of it that are, in fact. Good. So, our job at Audubon is to start to link together all of these conservation programs, from New York State, from our communities like Troy, and everywhere else in between, and start to stitch together life cycle conservation, which is let's do what's right for the birds in New York, but let's also do what's right for the birds in Florida, in Guatemala, in the Dominican Republic, in Brazil, and the other areas where the birds go to for part of their annual life cycle. I mean, it is amazing, right? I mean, it is amazing that these species of birds fly thousands of miles in their yearly cycle of breeding.
I
and
know
survival.
my wife, which is more of a natural person than I am, but I'm learning. She's working on me for all our years of marriage. But she says it's even more amazing than that, because some birds migrate to South America, they hatch, they have chicks, and the chicks grow up in South America and know how to fly backwards.
Exactly.
They, usually say, well, I'll take you 3 times to a child around the block so you know how to, get home. But here you don't even have a parent, and
it's instinct.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, she says.
It is incredible.
South America,
it's a marvel. I mean, it absolutely is a marvel of nature.
Now,
It's one of the mysteries.
I know people who love birding, but they also love photography. And they sit for hours in one spot with a long lens camera, and they just watch for, hopefully to see a certain type of bird, right?
Yes.
Is this true?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Photography is a wonderful gateway to
it's-
birding.
It's almost like hunting where you got to be real quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, birding also, you got to be real quiet. When you're sitting there and you can't blare a radio, and because the birds won't
Correct.
land on a branch, and so you can take a picture.
Is there special places, maybe what Mark is saying?
Absolutely.
Better places than others in the capital district?
The birders know where.
Well, I
to
don't,
go.
so that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking
No,
over
I
here.
understand, but I'm just
Well, I
saying
think any of our state parks and any of the DEC lands are wonderful. There's the Washington County grasslands where you can find owls and raptors and snowy owls when they come down in the winter. Not much of that happened. Anywhere on Long Island to see the shorebirds come in.
Fire Island.
I mean, it
yeah.
just, the list goes on and on. I
It
mean, we're
does.
really, really lucky.
Even locally around here?
And locally
I mean, 'cause
around
I'm-
here,
There's the
Five Rivers,
yeah.
Peebles Island State Park is a great
Right.
spot. Thacher Park is wonderful. Really, just your city parks. I mean, the birds will come through. We were just talking about there's a pair of bald eagles that are pretty close to the highway here in the capital region. Who are, getting their sustenance from the Hudson River. So you
Is
just
it
look
cleaning
up.
up for these birds?
Yeah, it is. It's doing a lot better
Really?
in terms of the
Fish.
pollution and the fish, and it's doing a lot better. There are a lot of breeding eagles on the Hudson River.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yep.
I'll have to go out there with Mark and check it out with our.
I don't have the patience. to
So
sit
do you know what a
hours to-
spectacular, this would be good for your viewers as well, a spectacular time to bird is when you're on the train to New York, coming and going.
Really?
It's just teeming with birds. The Hudson River is teeming with birds at any time, in the winter, in the summer, in the fall, in the spring. And it really is, if you can pick your head up out of your book or your work or what have you, and take a look on either side of the car, you'll see many species of birds.
Now, you
Ducks.
got to know what those species are. I
Right.
mean, that's my problem. Is
That's
that,
your problem.
I look at it and I say that's a
Well,
gray
you-
bird, or that's a.
You can enjoy birds without
can.
knowing,
You
I
can.
mean, everything
Well,
about
I know.
them.
I mean, when you see a hawk, and you see them fly like, with their wings spread so many feet apart, and they're just going like this, gliding, and they're back and forth. I mean, it's just
Right.
wonderful, just beautiful, just to see them soar.
It is.
Taking from the region down to our home, I mean, my wife, like I say, she's the natural person in the family, and we do have a bird feeder, but sometimes how do you attract the birds? Because sometimes I see bird feed, it's for this bird and for that bird, and, it's just
Yeah.
like I have 13 kids, and each one has their own meal
Right.
over here. I like this cereal, that cereal.
Yeah.
I mean, you think, well, bird, here's your food. and-
No,
doesn't
you
work
can.
that way.
Well, there are some birds that are pickier than others,
Right.
and there are all sorts of kinds of bird seed to get at your local store. I would just encourage people to, pick out the garden variety, the variety that's going to attract the most backyard birds. The cardinals, the juncos, the black-capped chickadees. These are birds that are in all of our backyards. The other thing that I like to do at our house is cut oranges, and the Baltimore Orioles really like those.
Just slices of
You
orange?
slice them in half and sort of stick them up on a tree, or
Not just the rind, but the whole.
the whole half,
half
so
of
the juicy part of the orange is there, and they really love that. Another thing is planting native plants is a big priority for Audubon. As I say, it's about protecting their habitats, and native plant species is really important. So for the gardeners among your viewership, coneflower, bee balm, milkweed, these are all really important to birds and pollinators and butterflies. And they're beautiful too. They're absolutely beautiful to include in anyone's garden.
Just where would you learn about, like Mark is actually saying, which includes me, don't know this bird from that bird. I mean, we know a cardinal.
AudubonNewYork.org.
Yes.
I knew
Thank you.
Really, I don't know. Mark did his homework and I didn't.
Out.
You just see all the names of the birds.
Yeah, we have a great website.
And it's new, too.
Yes, it is. And we're very lucky to have that website. We also have a downloadable application. You can download an app as well on the website. And so the next time that you're out in the field, Mark and Rabbi, you can say, okay, I just saw an orange and black bird. I'm going to punch in those characteristics, and up might come a Baltimore Oriole, for example.
Are you a fan of the Baltimore Orioles?
I really love
Yeah.
them.
No, the baseball team.
Yes, I'm not a big baseball person,
Oh, okay.
no.
But,
But the bird I love.
The bird
Yeah.
you love.
But, the next thing would be the sounds, because sometimes
Yes.
my wife will, we hear sounds, and we have a big backyard, and she hears, oh, that's kind of, whoop, 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 whoop,
Yep.
and this one and that one, and I don't know, all right, they're singing, let them sing. But, it's also something to learn about, what sounds they're making, so
Right.
you can, somewhere in the tree somewhere, obviously that bird is there.
Right, and the songs for the birds, I mean, for me, there's this magical moment in the springtime, and it comes in early May, and it is when the Baltimore Oriole, I hate to say it, comes back into the yard and starts to sing. And it is a very magical moment for me, because I'm a gardener and a birder, and I just know, well, spring's here, it's back. And so the song, it's a wonderful learning exercise, for folks, but it also is, once you start to recognize the different songs of the different birds, it can be really transformational for folks.
Okay, so let me go back a little bit, because we know that Audubon, New York, birding and loving birds is great for education, it's great for the economy, it's great for the environment. It spreads throughout the culture. You were obviously a birder before you got into Audubon, right? This is something that when you grew up with this, right? So when you were DEC commissioner, which years were you? 5 years you were commissioner?
Right, so I was the commissioner from about 2001, in February of 2001, until 2005.
Through the Pataki administration?
Yes. Yep.
And it must have been a joy, because he was such an environmentalist.
Yes.
He loved the environment. So you had his ear. I'm sure if you didn't come up with something, he'd be calling you saying,
Which is often what would happen. Yeah. No, it was really wonderful. We had great cooperation of the legislature, and New Yorkers care deeply about the environment, and when you see any polling on the environment, it always polls very high. People care deeply about their shared community.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's something that if you look at the legislature, it's sometimes you got, you would think Republicans were not as interested in the arts and the environment, and you turn around, you look at who's giving more money to the arts and the environment. It was Roy Goodman when he was in the Senate. It was the Republicans, all through, Kitty Carlisle Hart and all the others that were, the big names in arts were Republicans. And it's just interesting. And also in the environment, you look at Teddy Roosevelt, you look at George Pataki, they've done so much more. Not to say Democrats didn't do anything.
Right.
They did, but it seems like the Republicans always want to outdo the Democrats on those two issues. So that's a good thing, because there's a competition to always want to do more. Education's another one, I'm sure.
Right.
But I'm just saying, this is part of one of the good things that, the environment is, DEC in particular, is well funded.
Yeah, I will just say this. I really, I studied environmental protection and management in graduate school. It is my calling. So I was lucky enough to work in an administration, and I happen to be politically appointed. That doesn't make me a political person. And in fact, in New York, my experience is that conservation issues and environmental issues are bipartisan issues. And I think it is because of this strong ethic of, really of who we are as New Yorkers to want to take care of our environment. And when certain legislation gets passed, you you all know how long it takes to work on a bill and get something through. And so it really does take this bipartisan, long vision. But there's no doubt, working for Governor Pataki was really wonderful. Working for the people of the state of New York was great. He was a leader on the environment. He also happens to be a birder. So I learned a lot from him, and hopefully, I could contribute as well.
This portrait on the second floor in the Hall of Governors is him on his portico with an environmental scene in the background. I mean, which was unusual. It's lovely, it is. But it was it's the only one that's like that in the Hall of Governors.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
I don't know if you've seen it.
I have seen his portrait, but I haven't looked at it from your perspective. Yeah.
But if you look at it from all the other portraits there, it's usually someone sitting at a desk or leaning on a desk, or Governor Patterson was at a desk, but he had a cane in the back, and he said that was a secret, sort of like a hidden picture in his portrait, because while he was blind or legally blind, he didn't need a cane, but it was always there just in case. And he wanted to know that. He wanted people to know that he didn't really need it. So, but anyway, with
just wanted to ask,
Pataki, his thing is and he was given so many awards for the environment. I think more than any other agency. When he was a senator, he was an assemblyman. I mean, he was just always lauded as being that environmentalist.
It was a priority for him, for sure.
It really was.
Yep.
Yeah.
But going into the future, that the I said there are always lands of the Adirondacks with 6 million acres. I mean, obviously, construction homes aren't good for the birds, but just open land obviously is. Just expanding, and again, I know my Five Rivers, my area in Delmar,
Right.
That they're always trying to expand the areas from people's backyards that are close to it, just expanding. So is that part of your, maybe your lobbying efforts, just to get more habitat for the birds?
Yep, and we also have something called an important bird area, which is an area that the scientists have identified as being tremendously important to the birds and their survival. So there are over 100 important bird areas that have been identified in New York State, and they include a lot of public and private property. One item that people might not know is that the majority of the habitat in New York State is still in private ownership. So,
really?
It is. It really is. It's over 85%, and so.
I mean, people have estates. What does that mean?
It means
have
that
an incredible estate.
Farms, forests, shrubland.
And people own it.
And people own it, yeah. So, and of course, the land of New York State, the land mass is so large. And so one of the things that we work on at Audubon is identifying different types of incentives for private landowners to undertake habitat improvement projects. Everything from conservation easements on farmland to protect it as farmland, to improving habitat in forests and grasslands and other areas.
Have you done what the environmental planning lobby or environmental advocates do with the scorecard, and you see which bills you are pushing, or and then you rate each of the legislators? We
don't do that, but we do have a legislative agenda, and it rests on the chapters that I mentioned, the Audubon chapters, the 27 local Audubon chapters. They pass a whole resolution set. It's on our website, and that really becomes our legislative agenda in Albany.
So there's no way of tracking like how successful this was, or
we track
which legislators were less.
We don't do that.
No.
We track the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just quickly, in the last couple of minutes, we have the Montezuma Audubon Center. When I go along the Thruway,
where is it?
It's in central New York, west of Syracuse.
All right.
And east
Before
of Rochester.
Right.
I think Ontario County, maybe, or
Yates
County,
Yeah.
or the northern part.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you go, when I go through there, I see it as a swamp, and I always looked at it and said, what are they doing? Why don't they clean this up? Until I figured out what they were, but there's no signage. There's nothing that explains to the driver or to the motorist, what this really is. It just looks appearances, and then I find, wow, this shouldn't be cleaned up. This is the
Right.
way it's supposed to be.
Right, so that's the Montezuma National Wildlife
Yeah.
Refuge, and that complex is globally significant for migratory waterfowl. You can see snow geese, you can see, it's just an amazing place. And so the next time you're driving through,
Stop by, yeah.
stop by, because there's a lot of information at the visitor center, at the refuge, and then at the Audubon Center as well. So it's an amazing place. The kind of species that you will see and the numbers that you will see is just it will be a life-changing experience.
Well, it should be a sign that says this is the way it's supposed to be.
Right, that's true.
Something
that's true.
fun, something,
Yeah.
when the governor Cuomo has this historical places or something,
Right.
places to visit, that should be on that
Right.
list. So anyway,
Good
Erin,
idea.
we're out of time,
Hard to
and
believe.
we're having a good time. We should have brought a few birds here.
I know.
And we like both, I think Mark and I will just go bird sighting over here, I think now, because I'm getting excited about looking
Good.
for the birds,
Great.
and I'm sure our viewers are also.
Well, thank
You did
you.
good work. Keep on doing the good work and do it with good health.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Continued
Likewise.
success.
Thank you.